In our last class, we set up all of our assumptions for Allstate. Many of them were given. In fact, all the ones in this case were given. We just had to read through and get them. So you have how we got those assumptions. So let's set up the dividend discount model. Remember, the dividend discount model says the value of a stock equals dividend 0 times 1 plus the long-term growth, and all of that divided by KE minus long-term growth. The H model is that exact same thing again, but we add a high growth period. So do plus dividend 0 times H times short-term growth minus long-term growth. So very, very simple. Just add that little extra section. And then the cap earnings model is exactly the same dividend discount model, except for instead of using dividends per share, we use earnings per share. And instead of using long-term growth, we use expected inflation. But you can see how much we use the perpetual growth annuity formula, where the value of something is the cash flow divided by the discount rate minus the growth rate in each one of these. So in this one, we have dividend 0 is $2 times 1 plus the long-term growth, which is 5.5%, divided by our KE minus 5.5%. We get a value of 69.18. So we can take that formula and bring it down, and all we got to do is take what we just did and add to that dividend 0 times H times short-term growth minus long-term growth. And that gives us that value. Now we can check these two. You notice that the difference between the dividend discount model and the H model is $4.75. So that should just be that middle part of the formula, which is dividend 0 times H times short-term growth minus long-term growth, and take all of that and divide it by KE minus short-term growth. That should be our difference. Let's see if it is. Sure enough, it is $14.75. So you can double check that one. I'd encourage you to double check it. Very easy to do. And in the cap earnings model, we just take earnings per share times 0 times 1 plus inflation. There's our inflation assumption, divided by our discount rate minus inflation. So we get a value, a really high value. Why? Because this firm is not paying out much in dividends. There's a good chance that this dividends that they're paying out, dividends per share, is not the true free cash flow of Allstate. That they probably could pay a much higher dividend. Because of that, the cap earnings model gives them a much higher valuation. So if we go to Yahoo Finance and bring up Allstate, their ticker is ALL, and see what their current price is. I don't require that in the case, but it is good to do. So they're currently trading for 101.44. 101.44. So I would probably recommend a sell or a hold. I wouldn't do a buy. There's only one of my valuations that's higher than the current price. The other two valuations are well below the current price. So I would probably recommend a sell, maybe a hold. All right, so what we want to do with this, if you look at the problem, I'm going to put it on hold so I can bring up the, forgot to load the Excel application. So let me bring the Excel application up and you can see what I'm going to do next. So here's the problem. everything's loaded. So it said we need to figure out the intrinsic value, or the value of the stock using constant growth dividend discount model. We did that, got 60 something dollars. We did the H model, got 80 something dollars, and a cap earnings model and got $113, something along those lines. So we've done that first part. There's your answer for the first part. So now what we want to do is a data table. And let me show you the data table. I'm a very big fan of a data table. I'm going to build it in B41. And so what we want to do where we start the data table is we want to put the formula in for the dividend discount model. So if you look back at the Excel applications instructions for the constant growth dividend discount model, we're going to build a data table, and here's our ranges. For beta, we want to range from 1.25 to 0.9. So for beta, there's our beta range, and for growth, this is long-term growth, we want to range from 4.5, from 4.5 to 6%. So let's put that into the Excel. All right, so the first thing you want to do is put in the formula in, I'm going to put it in B41, so we're going to do equal. Now the formula is going to be this formula right here, except for we need to break it out in detail. So we can't just type KE, we need to put all the pieces for KE. So we're going to do equal dividend 0 times 1 plus long-term growth, and divide that by, remember KE is the risk-free rate plus beta times the equity risk or market risk premium, and then we subtract long-term growth. And it's kind of confusing here where equity risk premium and long-term growth are the same numbers, so make sure when you're doing the Excel application, the second problem, make sure you know which we're dealing with. The equity risk premium is part of the KE, the long-term growth is the long-term growth. You can see we got the exact same answer we got before, 69.18. So we want that to be in top, and so up here we're going to put beta. So for beta, it says we want to start with 1.25, and we want to take that 1.25 and subtract 0.05, and we want to go down to 0.9. So there's our beta assumptions, 1.25 down to 0.9, and then down here we're going to do growth. And for growth, you can see it says start at 4.5 and go to 6, so 0.045 and go by 0.0025, so take that 0.045 and add 0.0025. We'll copy that down until we get the 6%. I'm going to change that to percents. Now, if you do this in a paper, I really encourage you, if you take a class where you have to do this type of evaluation, I'd strongly encourage you to do a data table, but clean it up, make it look good. So I'm going to highlight all of these cells, then do Alt HMC. What HMC does is it combines all the cells and centers the word beta. Then I'm going to do the same thing here for the word growth, Alt HMC. And then I'm going to right click on this one, I'm going to format the cell. And what I want it to be on the alignment, I want the text to go sideways, and I want it to be centered. I'm going to shrink this column. It's going to mess up everything up above, but that's okay. And so for beta, let's pretty that up. Let's make it in blue and make the text white or do something so it looks good. Growth, I'll make that green. Use a white text. All right, so how do we do the data table? So we've got our assumptions. We got the original dollar amount here. So you go to B41. and you hit your shift key and you come down with your down arrow, go across, or you can use your mouse, highlight the entire thing, and then you do data, what if analysis data table, and it will tell you what to do. So if we come up here, it says the row input. Well, the row input, what's in our row? It's betas. So go up and find beta. There's our beta in B22. And our column input is growth, long-term growth. Our long-term growth is at 5.5, so we click on that. We say OK. And then you notice, now our main assumption was what? 110 and 550. 110 and 550. That's right there. That's at 69.18. Let's select all of this and let's change it to dollars. So it's dollars in 2 decimal places. The other thing we have is the current price. The current price is 101.44. So I'm going to bold. I like to bold this over here. Bold my growth rates, bold my betas. You can put a bold border around the entire thing if you like to make it look a little more professional. You can, if you want to, format cells and give it some lines. So on the border, click on the line, just click on these in between ones. What I like to do with this number here, because this number here, it has to be this part of the table, but it's not telling you anything. It's kind of strange that it's there. So I like to change that to black so you can't see it. And so now, in fact, if you want to, you can change this whole thing to black. And now you've got a really good looking table that you could copy and paste into a Word document if you wanted to. And it looked very, very professional. So you could put this in, your professors would be really impressed. Also, this is a great thing. If you're putting something out there on LinkedIn, data tables look wonderful. They're very powerful. I haven't finished with it yet. I'm going to clean it up a little bit more. If you go this far, you don't have to be fancy like I am, but this is what you need for your Excel application. The one last thing I want to add in here is some coloring. So I'm going to highlight all of these prices, and I'm going to go to the home, click on the home, and do conditional formatting. And I want to highlight the cells. If the cells are greater than, if these cells are greater than 101.44, so what that means is if it's greater than 101.44, I want it to be green, because what that means is I think it's a good stock. What the green means is my valuation is higher than the current price, therefore I think it's a good stock. Say OK, and then I'm going to do it again, conditional formatting. If it's less than 101.44, I want it to be red. So essentially what I have here is all the red are where I think the stock's expensive, and the green is where I think it's cheap. Now remember, my main base case was this 69.18, so I'm going to highlight that section, and I'm going to do another outline and say, hey, here's the section that is my base case. Here's my extreme cases. And you can see in this one, I would definitely change my recommend to a sell on the dividend discount model, because in none of my base case scenarios is the stock cheap. The stock is only really cheap down here. Now, there's a couple of things you can do. It doesn't really work with this one because we don't have that problem. But remember when we got a negative number? Remember if we did $2 times 1.055 divided by, and let's say our discount rate was 0.0525. If our discount rate was less than our growth rate, remember we get a negative number. It's possible in this table you get a negative number. So the other thing I would like to do on the conditional formatting is to say if it's less than 0, I click on this and I'm going to do a custom format, and I'm going to go into the fill, and I want the fill to be black, and I want the text to be black. So the fill to be black and the font to be black. Say OK. We don't have that here, but if we change one of these, let's say we change it to 0.1. you can see that you might test it. If I do it 0.1, what's happening is my discount rate's now lower than my growth rate, and that gives me the black. So again, I'm going to do this all one more. Well, you can watch the video again, but just again, on the conditional formatting, highlight the whole thing. If the price in here is less than the current price, you do not like the stock. You think it's worth less than what the current stock price is. You want it to be red. If the number in here is greater than the current price, you want it to be green because you're recommending it. You think it's worth more than the current price. If the price is less than 0, you need to change it to solid black with black text. The other thing you can do is sometimes you might say $2 times 1.055 divided by, let's say your discount rate was 0.0551. And now when you do your price, you get 21,000. And that's just because when your discount rate gets really close to your growth rate, you get these massive numbers. The other thing you could do with the black and the black text, the black field, the black text, if you say, hey, any value over $300 or any value over $400, I'm going to black that out too because that doesn't make any sense. So I'll show you how to do that. So you do it again. You do home, conditional formatting. If it's greater than, say, $500, again, click on this and do custom field. And you want the font to be black and you want the fill to be black. So I don't know how to get that one. Let's see, 0.6 maybe. It's hard to tell. 0.65 maybe. So I don't know what this number is right here. Let me, it won't let me do that. So let me take the conditional formatting on. Clear rules. So here you see it is too large of a number. It wasn't a negative number. I don't know what it is here. Yeah, these are just too large of numbers. So yeah, so in that case, yeah, you want it to be black as well. Oops, I went the wrong direction. All right, so hopefully you're seeing how that's working. Powerful stuff. Now when you put this into a Word document, it looks even more impressive because you got all this color coding so that your boss can look immediately and see what you think about this stock. It's a really powerful picture of your view of a particular stock. Here's your recommended area. You can see it's all red, which means you think the stock is overpriced. So try in your Excel application. I'm not going to be real picky on the grading. I'm doing this more because I think it's a powerful tool for you to pick up. And if you're putting stuff on LinkedIn, boy, this is impressive. There are a lot of college students that are picking up on this. A lot of them do it without fancying it, making it look pretty. Remember, the first person who's going to see you is probably a human resources person. They're impressed with this kind of stuff more than they are. They may not even understand this. They may have forgotten all the finance classes they took. Maybe it's been several years. Some of them may be in their job for 20 years. But they see something like this all prettied up. And so sometimes you got to work on just the formatting because the first people you interview with in accounting and finance are usually not accounting and finance people. They're usually human resources people. So make it look pretty. Make it look fancy. Some of y'all can press me and make it even look better. If I see one that I really like, I'll start teaching it that approach. So if you find an even better way of putting all this together, I mean, there's certainly ways to do more coloring. Maybe white's not the best thing to use here. Who knows? Maybe we should have different colors here. Who knows? Whatever you think makes it look the best. But take great pride in your papers and your work when you submit something. This is your last Excel application. Let this this data table be your last opportunity to show me how much better you are at Excel than I am, and I'll learn from you in this case. So that's your Excel application. That's it. So all you've got to do in Excel applications, everything we just did, except for now you need to do it for Allstate. Make sure you turn in Allstate, and then also do it with Costco. Costco's the second one. You'll create an Excel data table the same way. I give you the ranges to use. So go through the entire thing. So if you get this set up really, really well, if you copy it and paste it over, I'm not really sure how the data table will copy and paste over. More than likely, it's still going to be referencing your Allstate, and you'll probably have to build the data table from scratch. You can't actually edit it. There's no, if you try to delete one, it gives you an error message. So there's really, the only way I know, your best bet is just to delete the whole thing and start over from scratch, which actually is the best thing to do, because then you get more practice in building data tables. Now, the other thing you should do is think about data tables beyond just what we just did here. We could have done this with the corporate bond that we were pricing. We weren't real sure what spread to use, so we could have used different spreads and different risk-free rates. You could do this in a lot of other scenarios. Now, one thing, you're doing your cost-benefit analysis for your project. A data table would be great. The problem is, what do you put in your data table? It's actually quite difficult to do that. But I have thought about using data tables in the cost-benefit analysis. It's just, there's so many moving parts. One of these years, I'll think of a way to do it with that check handling project I gave you all as part of your Excel application 4, and see if there's a way to do it. But think about those kind of things, because you can see how powerful this is. You tell your boss, I don't recommend we buy Allstate right now. I think it's overpriced. And she looks at this data table and says, yeah, all your base cases, it looks expensive, and not only expensive, it's very expensive. There's only a few scenarios where it looks inexpensive, and that's with a really low beta and a really high growth rate. Yeah, I agree with you. This stock doesn't make sense to purchase. All right, so good luck with that. This might be one of the more challenging Excel applications, but also probably one of the more valuable ones for you in your career.